Can we talk about Outlander for a second? This fandom is wild. It is huge. It is engaged. They love this show, which frankly makes me more interested in the show. Now, let me tell you a little story. So of course, I've known about Outlander for many, many years now. It's been on Starz for a while, and it's entering its final season. And of course, I was offered an opportunity to interview one of the show's stars, Caitríona Balfe, and to talk about the final season and to sort of, get her take on sort of the journey of doing this character for so many years and what it's like to come to an end with a character like this. And I was preparing for that interview. I was on the set of a show and I was working, doing some stuff. And then I was chatting with a colleague about this potential interview that was coming up. And she told me how massive this show actually is. I knew it was big, but I had no idea it's as big as it actually is. Not that I didn't know that it was as big as it actually is, but I didn't know how engaged the audience is with this show. I think that's a better way of putting it. And that colleague that I was speaking with, Reshma Gopaldas, is basically an expert on Outlander. She knows this show backwards and forwards. You've read her recaps. You've probably read her interviews with the talent in things like Vogue. She understands Outlander in a way that is just both professional, but also really fan driven. And it sort of speaks in the way that I think how I speak about shows that I love so much. So when I was getting ready for this interview, which you can watch on the YouTube or listen to it on the podcast or whatever, you know how the internet works. When I was getting ready for the past interview I had with Caitríona, I really wanted to do another chat with Reshma specifically about the end of the series, obviously, but also the fandom around this series and how and why they are so engaged. I mean, it's rare these days to see a fandom of a particular show be as vocal and strong as the Outlander fans are, and how hard they ride for the stars of this show, the story, the books, everything involving Outlander. And I love to see it. It makes me so excited as someone who loves to cover shows and talk about fandoms of shows. The Outlander fans, there's nobody else like them. So this is a bit of a love letter of an episode to those Outlander fans to sort of prepare ourselves for the final season of Outlander. And for many of you who maybe never watched Outlander, I mean, I had seen bits and pieces, and of course I had prepared for my interview, so I'd watched what I needed to watch, and I understood the legacy of the show. But for a lot of people, they're going to be introduced to Outlander. There's going to be a lot of new Outlander fans this year. And so this episode also kind of serves as an introduction for you as well. So I think, I mean, I'm really fascinated by everything around Outlander right now. And so I really wanted to do something that spoke to that. And I really think you're going to enjoy my chat with Reshma today. So sit back and grab a snack because I will be right back to talk about all things Outlander. Ooh. And you need to go to the show notes to check out more of Reshma's work and her links and where you can follow her. If you are a hardcore Outlander fan, you need to be following her. I said it. First off, I have to say, I don't want to say you introduced me to Outlander, but you introduced me to how sizable the audience is for Outlander. I'm blown away. But are you blown away by how big this audience is?
Yeah, I mean, when I first started covering this show, I had no idea. I just decided to start doing recaps. It wasn't even my job, to be honest. I used to head video for a media company, and someone asked, like, "Does anyone watch Outlander?" And I was like, "Oh, I just started it." And one of my very good friends had told me, like, 4 years before, or maybe 2 years before, "Hey, you should start the show. It's amazing." She's an actress, and she was obsessed with it. So much so that I think she said, she's like, "I called my agent and I told them I want to be on this show."
Mm-hmm.
But did not work out. And she, she was like, you'll love it. And so I was busy with other stuff at that point. So I like never got around to it. And then like right before the pandemic in 2019, I started covering it. And to say that the fan base is passionate is an understatement. It's like, it's overwhelming sometimes. But it's also really beautiful. Like these two, not only did this television show started between the pages of a book, right? Diana Gabaldon wrote this story 35 years ago in 1991. That's when the first Outlander book was published. And in 2013, they started to put together this TV show, and Caitríona Balfe and Sam Heughan created another new community that is woo passionate. And if you mess up, they'll let you know.
Yes. Well, yes. I mean, all fandoms are known to be very aggressive if you mess up in any piece of information about it. But what is so wild to me, what I love about it is, okay, this is random and this seems like a tangent, but it's not. In the new season of The Comeback, I'm not giving anything away, but there is this sort of funny bit about how now shows are just on the most random of streaming platform, the most random of, not saying Starz is random at all. Starz is a very big, powerful player within the landscape of entertainment. That said, it's not an app. You know, you think Netflix, you think those apps, you think HBO
Yeah.
Max. You don't
Well,
necessarily think of Starz first.
Outlander made Starz, right? Like,
Yeah, yeah,
where do you watch Outlander? You go to Starz, and that's like part of
exactly.
their legacy.
Yeah, I mean, it really is like in a lot of ways for however random the Starz streaming app is, it really is a vehicle for Outlander in a lot of
Hmm.
ways. It became
Yep.
what the app even is in a lot of ways. I mean, they changed the logo of the app to be that like kilt fabric or whatever I just saw. I mean, my boyfriend saw
Yeah.
that and was like, why is the app like that now? Like it literally, it's that big of a
Well,
show.
they just did it because it's coming back
Well, of
in what,
course.
like a week.
Yes.
But the Power series is also very well known on the Stars app, and you know, that's great because, we don't have enough programming for
Hmm.
non-white audiences, and
Yeah.
so it's really wonderful. But
Well, and
yeah, right now everything's tartan for tartan. Did I say that
yeah.
right?
Well,
Tartan.
and Starz has been known for that over the years. They've definitely been producing a lot of really interesting, diverse, multicultural, but also multidimensional products
Hmm.
and content
Yeah.
over the year. I mean, like different types of shows have been coming to Starz. And one of the things that blew me away when I was talking to Caitríona about it is that even her describing the show, she laughs a little bit because it is
Yeah.
kind of like a bonkers premise for a show that you wouldn't expect to be as popular as it is. How do you describe the show?
Um, it's interesting. I sometimes forget it's a sci-fi show because I'm like, to me, it's a love story. I once described it in my writing as it's a show that will make you love love. And that's what it is. It's this aspirational love story at the center of a very sci-fi premise. A woman, 1945 nurse, drops back in time 200 years where she meets this young Highlander. She's also married in the future. So a little love triangle happens for a short while, but then it's very clear who you are rooting for in this story. And it's, but the thing is when I've told people to watch it or when gets recommended to me, it is a love story, but it's not like a sappy one. It's actually quite serious. It deals with a lot of very serious storylines, um, sometimes too much, and um, but it does have this beautiful chemistry between these two actors who have created this community, and people just fell in love not only with the story again on television, but they fell in love with these actors who create this show.
Yeah, I mean, when the show, because you've obviously covered the show quite a bit, you've spoken with the leads, you've definitely done a lot of your fantastic article in Vogue, like you've done a lot of coverage around this show. What have you noticed over the years of covering this show that makes it particularly, because it seems unique within the landscape of shows that do well on television these days or in streaming platforms? It seems particularly like an outlier in terms of you wouldn't expect when you hear this premise for this show to do as well as it's done. What do you think it is about it that makes it connect with the audience that it connects with?
I really have to go back to sort of what drew me in and was shocking for me is how the chemistry between the two leads. You just believed that these two people over, her dropping back in time and meeting this person, and then she chooses, spoiler alert, not to go back to the future to her regular life because that's how much they fall in love. Like that's how good their chemistry was. Also, in 2014 when this hit the air, They started making it, they probably started writing it in 2012. 2013 is when they started filming it. 2014 it comes out. At that point, their initial love scenes and sex scenes were very much, they weren't done with intimacy coordinators, so the actors had no protections. The two of them were quite green too, so they were navigating it as well. It also, put the show on the map in a way that the map has changed now. And the way they put it on the map is they did these love scenes through the like lens of female pleasure too.
Yeah.
Claire Fraser is a very unapologetic sexual being, and that's okay. And the two of them together, just they have chemistry. They have chemistry when they're just chatting on that show. And a lot of I spoke about this with them in the Vogue article. A lot of them behind the scenes, they were fighting for, hey, let's have a natural evolution of this relationship. These people are going to be married for however many decades and decades. You can't just have them jumping into bed every 5 seconds, and people became so addicted to their sexual chemistry. And the actors behind the scenes were like, okay, fine, we have that, but let's also show something else, because you've established that they have a good sex life, right? Tell a different story, but you can maintain that. And I think they've done a really beautiful job of taking a couple in their late 20s or mid to late 20s to now this season will pick up with them in their 60s.
Yeah. I mean, that's for an actor over the span of, 10 plus years of doing a television show. That's a big age span too. I mean, because there are the Golden Girls did not age like that over the 8 years
Golden
they were on
Girls,
the air.
I mean,
Yeah,
Claire and Jamie, I think, are the age of the Golden Girls. And
they
now
are.
I kind of want a Golden Girls Outlander crossover, and just have the two of them sitting on their couch. Like, I'd pay money to see that.
Oh. Well, I want to talk a little bit about how green the two leads were initially, because, like, again, that's also what I think is so fascinating about what makes this show such an outlier, an outlander, an
An Outlander.
outlier is
It
that is
is an
that
Outlander.
it
Yeah.
is an outlander is that you don't hear a lot in this. I mean, we cover the industry a lot. We cover a lot of different shows, and we know these networks are not greenlighting shows for untested talent. There is the if you have a show, someone on it, even Stranger Things,
Yeah.
someone on it had to be a tested talent. And that's why Winona Ryder was in that. Like, they just don't do that. And so for this show, it's not to say that these actors they weren't completely green, but yet they were very much green in a
Yeah.
popular culture sense.
And we have to credit Ron Moore, who created the show, Meryl Davis, who's one of the executive producers and was involved in the beginning of taking this book and adapting it, and then Tony Graffia, one of their head writers. I think all of them were really involved with taking a chance. So Sam Heughan was cast as Jamie Fraser first. And I think the showrunners have talked about, like, we thought that would be the hardest role to cast.
Oh,
And
interesting.
then Ron Moore said, what we found was they found Sam relatively quickly. They did not find Katrina until, I believe, 2 or 3 weeks before they started filming in Scotland.
Wow.
Now, the interesting thing about Katrina was she had been a model for years. She was an actress who was trying to be an actress. And as you know, this field is incredibly difficult. And she had never been on a television show. I think her foot was in The Devil Wears Prada, and she had done a few independent films and short films. And now it's so funny because she could get a lead role in The Devil Wears Prada if she wanted.
Yeah.
Um, I
Yeah.
would love that.
Yeah. I mean,
And
she's working with the likes of Kenneth Branagh with Belfast. Like, I mean,
yeah, yeah,
that's massive. That is actually
exactly.
massive. Yeah.
It's a great story. But what I love about her success story, and Sam's too, is that it's never too late to start doing what you love. I think she didn't get that role until she was like 34 or 35, maybe. And here we are, almost 13 years later, and they have one of the longest running shows on television. And they have maintained a strong audience. They have made it through a pandemic.
Yeah.
And Sam had done a little, I think he had done some films and some television, and he's a stage actor too. In fact, right when they wrapped from Outlander. He returned to the stage. He played Macbeth this past, I don't even know what month it is, but a few months. Oh, in December, he played Macbeth, and I got to see him in that. And it was like, it
Wow.
was amazing. It was really,
Wow.
it was just so fun to see them outside of these two roles. And I think that's what's going to be wonderful, is that they're going to be taking this fan base to wherever they go next.
Well, and I want to talk about the fan base, because one of the things that I think doesn't get enough credit for shows like this is that and I think about this oftentimes whenever I whenever I tell people, like, if you want to do well on the internet, focus on women, focus on the gays. Those are the two audiences that will drive pop culture in a way that will they run the internet. They're the ones buying things, they're the ones putting things out there. Like, it is quite literally the most active audiences. If you get those two groups on your side, you got a secret to success. And Outlander,
Exactly.
I don't know. I mean, I'm a gay, but like, I don't know how many gays Outlander has. I'm assuming a lot, but I know they have a lot of women. I know they have a lot of women who love this show. And for an audience of a marginalized group of people who oftentimes Hollywood does not create entertainment that is geared towards or told within the guise of a female story or female perspective, and for a show like that that exists in that lane to then be successful and to be a flagship show for a new platform, a new network even,
Hmm.
and for it to have that kind of success should be a recipe for success for other networks to follow. And yet I don't think that's happening. I don't see that happening. So I want to know,
Yeah.
first off, speak to the power of this audience, but then what impact do you think this audience is having on the industry?
Well, the power of this audience. So it's interesting you say, I think in the beginning of the show, especially, it was very clear that women, and older women, right? 40, 50, 60, 70, a lot of them had read the Diana Gabaldon series and loved that. And so were translated over. Um, but, and sometimes you will get those book readers who are like, that didn't happen in the book. It's better in the book. And you get the people who are faithful to that, but it's great. But then you start having, I think what was sometimes at times overwhelming for me is, like, there's some fans that are really there for Sam, and there's some fans that are really there for Katrina. And sometimes they like battle it out a bit. And I was like, can't we all just get along? And what I think is nice about shows like this is that it saw the woman was the hero in the story, right? Like, Jamie Fraser was a hero, and he's like the big strong man, but he's also the one that is like matches her as a partner. She's the strength of the show, right? And together they're the heart of the show. Not to say his character isn't strong, so Sam fans don't come for me, but I think women saw themselves represented in a way as heroes, in a way that we are not represented in a lot of shows. We were objectified for decades, and we continue to be. And we always were, there's a lot of shows, even a lot of movies and films now, where the women are always like, oh, the wife gets killed off, or she's at
Yeah.
home taking care of the children. And we still have that problem. Women deserve to be in the forefront. And what I think is nice about Outlander is her co-star is also like supporting her, you know what I
Uh-huh.
mean? And vice versa. And I think that's why people gravitate so much towards the actors, because their friendship off screen really informs what's happening on screen. And you can see that camaraderie come through in the acting and the storylines.
Yeah. Well, so then why do you think, because it doesn't, I mean, I'm seeing little glimpses of the narrative changing. Of course, you have the outliers always of, like, the little, like, I'm thinking of the film Send Help recently with, that
Yeah.
the new Sam Raimi film that, like,
Yeah.
basically it is told from the woman's point of view. It is told completely from the perspective of this woman, even though there are two their co-leads in it, the male and the female. It still is very much from the woman's perspective. So you see small examples of it, but not in a way that you're getting the big deadline stories that say that this film or this show is coming out about these women, unless there's like a massively famous woman attached to it. I'm thinking Big Little Lies. I'm thinking something with Reese Witherspoon. You know what I mean? Like, unless there's some massive star attached to it, you're not getting those greenlit projects. So why do you think the industry didn't see this as a recipe and they created other things. They created spin-offs of this show, sure, but
Well,
why
yeah,
haven't
so
other
they
places done it?
created the prequel, but the prequel exists mainly because the popularity of the current cast, right? You wouldn't care about Jamie and Claire's parents if it weren't for what this cast had done.
Mm-hmm.
So, going back a bit to how green the actors were, I mean, I believe this was the first show where Caitríona was on a television show and she became number one on a call sheet. I hope people do follow this recipe where you look and you say, hey, this person's had no experience, but there's something about them that just is magical. And I think, unfortunately, in this age where budgets are changing and studios really have to be careful about what they're spending on, and in an age where media is changing and they're not even wanting to spend money on, proper journalists or writers or even actors. I mean, we have AI creeping in. What was that AI actor, Tilly Norwood?
But
Like,
yeah,
Tilly's
yeah,
like creeping in, but what they should
yeah.
do is return to the essence of this show is a great almost case study about take a risk on new talent. You don't always have to have the big name. And I actually think what made this show so great is that you didn't have the onus of a big actor. I remember when they first started talking about this show, I read somewhere that like Liam Neeson was being considered for Jamie Fraser. But that was like back when I think they were going to maybe make it into a movie. And Diana Gabaldon said go to multiple movies, which was great because this lent itself to a series. I think the best thing that they did, I think to match the casting in this show of those two characters, of these two actors, is an incredibly difficult thing to repeat. And it was magical. And I think they should start to say, okay, before we hire Tilly Norwood over here, let's go to humans that might not have the experience, but definitely have the magic.
Yeah, I mean that I'm reading this book right now about the making of Sunset Boulevard. It's called Ready for My Close Up. And it's what I find what it's giving a lot of backstory on sort of the talent involved in it. And it's talking a lot about the old Hollywood machine and how sometimes they would go to like the UCLA theater program and they would just sit there and see these young talent and then be like, she'd be good for the daughter. Let's get her. And that would does not happen today. It doesn't happen in that way at all anymore. And I think to myself, like, how great would it be? How many talented, beautiful, how exciting it is to watch a show that has two leads like Outlander that I've
Mhm.
never seen before in my life. I have no backstory with them. And then to just fall in love, A, because they're hot, but B, because they're talented. Like to
Yes.
fall in love with them, and it's sort of like in a weird way. And I think as a viewer, and I think maybe you can
Mhm.
speak to this a little bit too, as a viewer, it almost feels like you discovered them. It feels like you discovered something that then you get to share with all of your community that be like,
Exactly.
I know these two hot actors on this show. You all gotta be watching it. I can't be the only one getting off to them. They are so amazing. So
I would
like,
like to say I've never gotten off to them. Don't make it weird for me. Okay.
but you know what I'm saying in that like,
In fact,
there
as
is,
I've gotten to know them, some of those love scenes, I'm like, I could go get wine. I could go reheat my food. Like, we can see this later. Um,
but there are
okay. So
people who've
you
had
said so
that.
many great
Yeah.
things there, and now I have to go back and remember. One thing I wanted to say, just going back to the fans for a quick second, you know, how you said you have to prioritize women and like that's one of the reasons I started writing these recaps. And what I found fascinating was the fans were so funny and so great about their reactions because they loved it so much. So I started to feature the fans in some of my recaps. They're
Oh,
whatever they were tweeting and this and that. And then, it was just funny because the pandemic was different times too. And then I think Caitríona and Sam and Sophie, they all started reading the recaps too. And I interviewed Sophie for the end of season 5. And she said, oh, yeah, yeah, we love your recaps. And I was like, what? Why are you reading my recaps? I just never knew actors did that. But again, it was the pandemic and we were all sitting at home, so we had free time. Um, but what was great was for me, I loved being able to highlight my recaps. I want you to feel like you're sitting on the couch next to me and
Mm-hmm.
watching the show. And that's what's so beautiful about television like this that comes out weekly that we
Yeah.
kind of miss in the binge of it all.
Yeah.
You don't have that communal feeling. And what Outlander has created, which is why this show will live on forever, is a community.
Yeah.
And that will not go away anytime soon. It will just expand with every single thing that each of the actors in this cast does. They bring
Mm.
this community with them.
Well, so like then as a fan of the show, because I feel like anyone who's listening or watching this will have their own reactions to it. What is something from Outlander, either a moment or a season or an episode that stands out to you that you're gonna miss when they don't have new episodes coming, or something that you loved so much that you just
Yeah, I
remember
mean,
back?
there's nothing, and the actors have said this too, there's nothing like the first season. Sometimes I wish I'm excited about getting older in my life because I feel like our short-term memories are gonna go kind of, and we
Yes.
can rewatch shows almost as if it's for the first time. There is no feeling like watching season 1 of Outlander for the very first time.
Yeah.
And I think I talked about this in one of my last articles. I one of the best scenes in that show was the reckoning in season 1. And it's the time where these two characters you realize as the audience and they don't realize as characters, but they're really falling in love with each other and they have this huge fight. And it's a very controversial episode too because Jamie ends up like spanking Claire and then but before that he rescues her from the villain for the show and they get into this really terrible fight. And that scene was their audition scene. It was taken right from the book. And if you watch their audition and you watch the actual scene, there's hardly any difference. Like the
Wow.
chemistry of those two was there from the minute they met each other because they met in the chemistry test. And for me, I remember when I watched that scene, my jaw like dropped because I think at one point, I mean, you're just like, oh wow, they really love each other, but wow, this is such a terrible fight. Like, how do they come back from this? And then in 1 second, you see the beauty of this couple that they can be so passionate with each other and so upset with each other, and then so understanding and so in love with each other and not realize it. And I think the Jamie Fraser character says in that episode, you know, they like forgive each other. And he said it was falling in love. That's what I realized was happening. And Claire would take a little more time to realize that, but it's a beautiful scene. And I have to say, I love when those two characters are really kind of going at each other a little bit and as they've gotten older, because they've been in a marriage and they're secure and, there's not as many of those scenes. But I will say one of the things I love about the episodes I've seen for the new season is you get a little of that Jamie and Claire that's feisty and passionate, but also still in love in their
Yeah.
60s. It's a lovely callback to season 1.
Well, so then my last question for you, actually I have one after this, is what are you, speaking of the final season, what are you, I know you've seen some of it, but are looking forward to in the final season? What do you hope gets answered in the final season?
Okay, so I think like a lot of fans, I mean, I'm someone who I don't want people dying. The news is like stressful enough right now. I
Mm-hmm.
want these two characters to sort of live on forever and have their happy ending. You can give us all the trauma drama you want for these 10 episodes, but in the last 5 minutes, you give me my happy ending for these two because they have not had happiness throughout these 8 seasons.
Yeah.
Um, the book series is actually continuing for one more book. So I think fans are holding out hope that there'll be a movie down the line or something. But
I could
if
see that.
I could see it too, if the stars align and everything. But what I would like to see is sort of the peak Outlander drama but answering there is a question in episode 1. I don't know when you watched it, there's sort of like what they think is Jamie's ghost looking up at Claire in the window. I'd love for that question to be answered a little bit. But I just feel like they've gone through so much and
Give him a
I just
break.
I want give them a break, like, and pretend like if they're in the ocean and it's the Titanic, I want them
Hmm.
both to fit on the door. And then you can go out. Like, I'm fine. Or they can both sink together. But I do not want one dying and one staying alive. I will not have it.
And nothing bothers me more than literally nothing in Hollywood. Now that you brought up Titanic, I'm just gonna, even though it has no relevance to this, I'm saying it every time I hear it. Every time she says, "I'll never let go, Jack. I'll never let go," and then literally pries his
So,
hands off of and then lets him
yeah.
go, I'm like, that is just bad writing.
It is, but I can wrap it back into Outlander. Jamie and Claire, the one thing those two dependent souls have is they will never let each other go. Even death can't really, or time, or space, or all those
Yeah.
things can never separate those two. And that is the beauty of this show. And nothing can separate those fans from this cast. And that is
Yeah.
also beautiful. But yes, I want a happy ending.
Yeah, I feel you. Well, so this is really, I guess, isn't a question. It's more just a suggestion for anyone listening who has the powers that be. You have these people too. I am obsessed because I love television and film, obviously, but I also love the deep dives into the episode by episode breakdowns of, interviewing the talent and talking with the people involved and giving a retrospective on sort of what made the show the show. Like I've read books from the retrospective on The Sopranos or The Golden Girls or any of these shows that I love so much. I think you're the one that needs to write the Outlander one on the basically the legacy of Outlander. So my question is for agents
Yeah.
listening, are you available and free to do that for the fans?
I don't know. We will see. Similar to how Katrina and Sam answer the "Will there be an Outlander movie?" Never say never. We'll see what happens. But it's a really beautiful show, a really beautiful legacy, and I'm honored that you think I could do it justice.
I don't think anyone else could. Honestly, I feel like you're the one. I don't know though. I mean, people fight me in the comments if you want, but I'm always going
Yeah.
to be doing it for you.
Don't fight
So
him.
where
Don't
wait,
fight us in the comments.
yeah, I mean, I'll fight for you. So
Okay.
where can people follow you on the internet and your amazing work?
Okay. You can follow me on Instagram. My headphones falling out. I have small ear canals. Now you all know that. You can follow me on Instagram. I'm not on Twitter anymore. That's the bad place. But that's really where kind of my stuff will be. And then,
What's your handle?
um,
I mean, I
uh,
know it, but yeah.
yeah, Reshma Go.
Yeah.
That's
And I'll put
right.
it in the show notes so you can go tap that link in the show
Exactly.
notes for
And then I'm
everyone.
going to be recapping the final season of Outlander on my Substack, on my site. And I'll also be releasing exclusive interviews with the cast. I have a podcast called Son of a Binge, and
Huh?
I interviewed the actors for that for the last season, for the last, what is it, season? And so you can follow me there. So there's a podcast and Substack, recaps, all the good things.
Yeah, and I'll put
Yeah.
all the
Yeah.
links in the show notes. And obviously, you just follow my stories, and I'll be sharing your stories. So, like, we're great.
Okay.
There's the linkage will be happening. Thank you for
Okay.
doing this.
Thank you.
I'm telling you, she just knows things about Outlander. I mean, this fandom, you guys are just kind of the best. Yes, I'm saying it. Outlander fans are kind of the best there is. There. Thank you so much for checking out today's episode. I really do appreciate it. You can leave a little rating and review wherever you're listening or watching this. I'm H. Allen Scott on everything. In the meantime, go watch something fun today. Maybe Outlander? I don't know. I think that's probably what you're going to watch. And have a good one.